It's the College Baseball Weekly Recap, the Juco edition. I'm Brian Sakowski. I'm joined as always by Colton Olinger. Colt, how are you, man?
Good. Ready to roll this week. Another exciting week of Juco baseball.
There's no doubt. And we'll quickly run through the top 10 before we get to a new special feature that we're going to do. The top three stayed the same this week. Central Arizona at 1, Walters at 2, Wabash at 3. All had undefeated weeks, all had big weeks. Colt, what's Central Arizona doing, man?
Oh, yeah, like you said, 4-0 week for Central Arizona. Another great week of starting pitching. Game 1 against South Mountain, they get Hunter Omlid. Goes 5 innings, complete game for him there, allows just 2 runs. And they bounce back in game 2 against another South Mountain once again with Tyler Westerner, goes 6 innings, no runs, 9 Ks for him. They really got the starting pitching rolling out there. Matt Olson and Daniel Davila also rolling on the starting rotation for him there. So good week for Central Arizona.
And most of those guys are guys they brought back. And that's an element of something that we had before the season as far as being high on them was the amount of veterans that they had. And we're kind of seeing that carry the load here into the season for them. Walter State, number 2, they're 31-1. They've had a 6-0 week. Not a whole lot to say there from my end. They're just playing really well. Colt, what do you think?
And a lot of home runs. A lot of home runs for Walter State really stands out. Albert Osuna, 3 more this week, brings his total to 14. Well, Jerry Hammonds hits another 4, bringing his total to 15 on the season with 66 bombs through 32 games for that club.
Coach Shelton had told me before the season, I think we're going to hit some bombs and watch out for Hammonds and Osuna. So pretty prescient feel for his own club there, Coach Shelton, no doubt. And number 3, Wabash Valley. Hard to say at 23-2 that they started slow. And they didn't, but there were some weird losses in there in recent weeks and early weeks, but a 6-0 week, 23-2 sitting there at number 3 overall, hard not to like what they're doing.
Oh, for sure. And, you've kind of seen some jockeying through the order for this club. But, the last couple of weeks, Xavier Pinellas hitting at the top there at 481 for that club. Peyton Pennington kind of slid up into the 2-hole, it looks like, the last couple of weeks, hitting 488. And Fraylin Magnetti hitting over 500 in the 3-hole, driving in a ton of runs for that club. So that top of the order really seems to be clicking for an offense. It's got an on-base percentage of over 500 so far in the season.
And to quickly look at the rest of the top 10, there was a little bit of movement. LSU Eunice and Crowder are 4 and 5. They both moved up a slot. Eastern Oklahoma at 6, Southern Nevada at 7. Both clubs that also moved up. An interesting storyline we'll get to in a couple minutes is going to be Crowder and Eastern Oklahoma for a different reason. Johnson County bumped up 2 spots. They're still undefeated. They're 23-0, that number 8. And Central Florida had a couple losses this week. Sanjak had a couple losses this past week, so they are 9-10. Just stumbled a little bit, but still comfortably in that top 10 for sure. Moving on, we're gonna do a little bit of a special feature this week, and it's something we plan to do periodically on this show. Probably not every week, because that would get monotonous. But following in the footsteps of NCAA baseball's 8 for Omaha projections, we're going to do a 10 for Grand Junction, where Colt and I kind of go back and forth talking about the leaders for the bids to Grand Junction, some dark horses in those regions, and just kind of look at who we project to be the 10 clubs in Grand Junction. I'll start right away. Coming out of the Appalachian, getting the Appalachian bid, that's Region 7 and 17, have to like Walter State as far as the dark horse, or not the dark horse, pardon me, the leader in the clubhouse right now for that bid. They're 31-1. We just talked about them playing really well. But we do have a dark horse who is in our top 25. Colt?
For sure. And Georgia Highlands off to a 27-4-1 record. I know they've played a lot of clubs out of Alabama, a lot of competitive clubs out of Alabama, and definitely look to be in it for the long haul and could be right there for that Appalachian bid at the end. Moving on to the East region. This is going to be regions 10, 15, and 20. Gotta like a lot what Florence-Darlington's doing there in region 10, off to a 21-3 start. I know they got some solid starting pitching out there, and definitely a club to contend with in that East region.
And the dark horse there is another team we have ranked in the top 25, and that's Harford out of Maryland. They're 13-2-1, haven't played a ton yet, but have played well. And as the weather warms up in the north, they'll get more of their games in, and we'll get a better picture But right now, certainly a club that could make the case for Grand Junction. Moving over to the Mid-South, and we have to shout out friend of the program, Corey Kohler from Sanjak here, since the 10 for Grand Junction was technically his idea. He texted to me last week, immediately loved it, ran with it. That's what we're doing. And so with that being said, our projection for the Mid-South bid there is Sanjak. They're 28-8, playing really well. Had a couple losses this past week, like we said, but nothing to be overly concerned about yet. They're playing quite well.
In that Region 14 Mid-South region, Wharton County playing really good baseball. 11-3 so far in the region play. Right now coming in at number 2 in the region standings. Look to be right there with Sanjak all the way to the end. Mm-hmm. Moving on to Midwest, we have regions 4, 11, and 24. Obviously got to like Wabash Valley right here, off to a 23-2 start. Strong club, always going to be there in that what should be always be a tough Midwest regional.
Definitely. And the dark horse there, I think there's 2 of them you could mention. Iowa Western is the highest in our standings. They're 19-4. They're 10-0 in Region 11. Those are the 2 schools that generally have some kind of like titanic clash at the end of the year for the right to go to Grand Junction. But don't forget about John A. Logan in there as well, another club in our top 15 who's playing quite well. Those 3, I think, are kind of the ones we're looking for. Out of the Plains, I think that an interesting couple matchups here, but the leader in the clubhouse has to be Johnson County. They're 23-0 in Region 6.
Yep. And, coming right behind them in Region 6 as well is Cowley, and going to be a competitive club, going to be a competitive finish as it always is out there in the Plains. Rich history of good junior college baseball out there, and this year looks to be no different.
No doubt.
So in the South, the all Alabama region, Chattahoochee Valley looks to be the leader in the clubhouse, off to a real strong start at 24-6. Stumbled a little bit this past week, but looks to be on track there to be right there at the end and pushing for that Grand Junction bid.
And I think kind of following them, like the dark horse there, probably has to be Dothan when we're talking about Alabama. They're 24-9, having a good season. We ranked them preseason in the top 50. Didn't feel uncomfortable about it. Those 2 should go down to the wire, and we'll see who comes out of there. Out of the South Atlantic, and this is more or less Florida. An interesting little case there to be made in a different discussion that there should be 2 bids from Florida. But right now, with just the one, we like College of Central Florida insofar as our pick from there. Marty Smith's club playing really well. Had a couple losses this week, lost a series to a Seminole State team that's pretty good and was just on the outside looking into the top 25, but still got to like them.
Yeah, and right behind them, a club that, had kind of been off the 2 prior weeks, got back to play this week in Northwest Florida. Mm-hmm. Always going to be a strong club down there. And like you said, one of the most competitive regions in the country. Could argue that it could be 2 bids because there could easily be a couple more schools. You list as a dark horse here in Chipola. Mm-hmm. A bunch of good baseball down there. Santa Fe, playing well in that region as well. But right now, I think Central Florida at the top there and Northwest Florida, definitely can make a push there late.
Sure.
Moving to the South Central region, you've got Region 2, 16-23. You'll have, early leader in the clubhouse, Crowder at 23-4 there in Region 16.
Yeah, Crowder just playing really well, man. 23-4, looks strong. They're number 5 in the country. And then the dark horse, like we kind of alluded to earlier, would have to be Eastern Oklahoma State. They're 26-2. Hard not to see them both as favorites if such a thing could exist. They're number 5 and 6 for us in the country. That's going to be a war at the end of the year. Now to the second Texas bid. This will come out of the Southwest. We like Howard here. They're 21-9, just a little bit on the outside of the top 25 looking in. But their losses are not bad losses. They've kind of beaten the teams they're supposed to, more or less. Tough one to figure there, but right now we kind of like Howard.
Yeah, and for a dark horse there, Temple at 21-5, playing in the north side of the region there. They're going to be right there into the end. I know they're off to a strong start there in Region 5 play, and should be a battle right to the end with those 2. Out of the West, I guess kind of the region I used to call home, playing in Region 9 back in the day, but Regions 1, 9, and 18. Obviously got to like Central Arizona out of Region 1 as the leader here, off to 28-0 start, number 1 in our rankings. Good pitching, balanced lineup. Definitely going to be a club that, I think a lot of people are going to like for that bid, but, definitely got a competitor there in Region 18 as well.
And obviously, like you just mentioned, Region 18, Southern Nevada sitting right there. Preseason #1, they're 25-6. They're number 7 in the country. Hard not to see those two in a really big series to end the season to decide who's going to go to Grand Junction. But with that being said, thanks for joining us on PGTV. This is the College Baseball Weekly Recap, Juco edition for Colt. I'm Brian. We'll talk to you next week.